I've started a series where I do an in-depth analysis of the lightsaber duels in the Star Wars films. I have experience with both European fencing and Japanese kendo, the two main pillars on which lightsaber combat was based, so I'd like to put that experience to use. Last time, I did my analysis on the very first lightsaber duel of all time, so now we're on to The Empire Strikes Back, with Luke versus Vader. Peter Diamond is returning as the stunt coordinator, but everyone else is new. Though David Prowse still performed as Darth Vader, his destruction of props led to him being replaced by a stunt double. And that stunt double? None other than Bob Anderson. Anderson's long and impressive career as a fight choreographer includes such highlights as The Highlander, The Three Musketeers, The Princess Bride, The Mask of Zorro, The Pirates of the Caribbean, and The Lord of the Rings. He's an Olympic fencer who has won many national and international championships. That being said, we must keep in mind who he's working with. Actors typically aren't Olympians, so the list of actors who could theoretically give Bob Anderson a run for his money is very short, and that's assuming any names are even on it. Bob can't show the full extent of his skill because he needs the actors he's fighting against to appear to be a challenge for him. It's like when a father wrestles with his children. Whether he lets them win or not, he's definitely not trying his hardest. Thus, unfortunately, we won't see anything close to Olympic-level fencing, despite having an Olympian on set. So, since the opponent is so significant for setting the limitations, let's look at him. Mark Hamill had no prior experience with fencing of any kind before joining Star Wars, yet in preparation for The Empire Strikes Back, he had a crash course in karate, kendo, and fencing for about 4 months. Yet putting a number to how much somebody trained isn't as significant as seeing it in action. Some actors have better training, some are more naturally skilled, or some just have a greater interest in swordsmanship, so we can't judge Mark Hamill's skill level until we actually see it. So, for this duel, we have Mark Hamill versus Bob Anderson under the direction of Peter Diamond. Collectively, they have a much greater base of knowledge of martial arts, with the actors actually training specifically in fencing and kendo for this scene. So let's begin. Right, this is technically the second ever lightsaber duel, so let's strap in for 20 seconds of slow-mo dueling. Luke ignites his saber first and raises it into a guard position. The tip of the lightsaber is high, as it is typically best to have it more about eye level of your opponent. But kendo and other cutting-based swordsmanship do allow for higher guards. This change from the previous film could be nothing, but may be a small indication of the increased kendo influence in lightsaber duels. Being primarily a saberist, which is a cutting-based weapon, Bob Anderson may have been more comfortable with these high guards. Mark Hamill's stance is a little more ready than Alec Guinness's. His legs seem a bit more bent, ready to go. Darth Vader ignites his saber and comes out into a guard, crossing blades with Luke. Notice his arms are much more out in front of him than Luke's. For this scene, I'm not actually sure who's in the Vader suit. Obviously, Bob Anderson took over the stunts in Cloud City, but had that already happened at this point? I can't seem to find anything that definitively says, but this stance may be a clue. In A New Hope, Prowse kept his arms painfully close to his chest. Even when attacking, he rarely fully extended. This outstretched guard looks much more like someone who knows what he is doing. Then again, David Prowse uses a two-handed fighting style, while Bob Anderson uses a one-handed style. So what do you think? Either way, one merit for the proper guard. We can also see Mark Hamill's arms being very close to him. It's not good form, but I'm not sure it's bad enough for me to give him a demerit, so we'll just keep an eye on him. They touch blades briefly. To me, this looks much more like an acknowledgement of the beginning of the duel, not like they're feeling the distance with their blades. Dueling often has ritualistic beginnings to set the combatants in their starting positions, and that's what this looks like. Despite this being accurate, I'm not going to award any merit because starting positions are what is common in sport swordsmanship and judicial duels, where they are specifically ensuring everyone starts on an even playing field. In actual combat, where two warriors meet and fight, such rituals aren't practiced. Vader then takes a huge wind-up for the swing. Is that you, Bob? If so, what are you doing? Maybe they didn't want him to look too different from the first film. Still, this is ridiculously bad form. From his starting position, Vader could easily have made a quick downward strike to Luke's hands or lunge through his head or chest. This wind-up left him completely open to a counterattack which Luke could have exploited had the script not told him to wait. This huge swing goes low, which Luke blocks. But Mark Hamill's movement is all wrong here. He moves his blade down, but does so by swinging it counterclockwise. Since Vader's strike is coming from Luke's left to right, both Luke and Vader's blades are moving the same direction when they meet, towards Luke's body. A block needs to either stop or redirect an attack. To stop an attack effectively, you must meet force with force. The most effective way to do this is with an equal and opposite force. A strong block should, therefore, move the opposite direction as the attack. To redirect, you must move the incoming blade in a new direction. Mark Hamill is swinging his lightsaber towards himself. Thus, if he were to redirect Vader's blade, he would only guide it into himself. Vader makes a high attack now, and Luke moves his guard from low to high. This was almost a good move from Luke. If Mark Hamill had swung clockwise in his first block, he could have used the momentum of that swing to carry him forward into that high position. Instead, since he swung counterclockwise, he has to come to a complete stop and then start a second motion. Thus, instead of one fluid movement, Mark broke it into two movements. This is slower and takes more effort, as the momentum from the first swing could have aided in performing a counterattack. Then he could have moved from defense to offense all in one single motion. Instead, he is stuck defending. This is more of a missed opportunity due to his initial mistake, so I won't give him a demerit. And, of course, the reason Mark Hamill didn't turn a block into a counter is that wasn't in the script. Mark Hamill's high guard is also very low here, but it seems that he does attempt to do a proper block this time. Due to the position of his blade and the direction of Vader's attack, it wouldn't make sense for Luke to make a counterclockwise block here. The distance is just too far. It's a much shorter distance to defend his head going clockwise, so clockwise he goes. But what's the issue with clockwise here? Clockwise means his blade is actually moving downwards when Vader attacks. Thus, both the attack and the block are moving the same direction once again, repeating the error of Luke's first block. But Luke compensates for this by pushing upwards with his block, which is an actual move. Again, blocks are meant to meet force with force, so punching upwards with his blade is exactly what Luke should be doing in this situation. He doesn't punch up very high, so I'm not convinced that this was intentional, His head can still be seen above his blade, meaning Vader could slide his attack down Luke's block and cut the top of his head off. I'm going to assume that this move was intentional, just poorly executed, and so give 1 merit for the move and 1 demerit for the bad form. Vader then goes in for a 3rd attack to Luke's body, which Luke blocks. They get into a blade lock and wrestle, and then, instead of using any of his many tools learned over a brilliant career as an Olympic fencer, Bob Anderson stands there and lets Luke overpower him, pushing his blade out of his way. And Luke is pushing so hard that, when he succeeds in knocking aside Vader's attack, his momentum carries him off to the right of the screen, leaving him wide open to a counterattack. Luke then performs a massive swing. Since his momentum carried him so far away, he has to recover all that lost ground in this massive swing, which Vader, thankfully, patiently waits to receive. This gives us a total of 3 merits and 6 demerits, meaning only 33.33 and so on merit in our second ever duel. A notable step down and, frankly, rather a disappointment for Bob Anderson's debut in Star Wars. Still, I'd say Bob Anderson won that duel by exhibiting a proper guard, if nothing else. His lack of response to Mark Hamill's many mistakes and his waiting around to get hit are all a product of the choreography, not him. As for second place, I'm not sure whether it should go to Peter Diamond or Mark Hamill. Once again, Peter Diamond's choreography is littered with both excellent and horrible moves. And once again, the actor undermines what good moves exist with poor execution. There are also things I simply can't know. Was Mark supposed to swing counterclockwise, or did he just make the wrong choice? In the end, I'm going to give Mark Hamill the silver medal because this duel is bare-bones choreography without any depth. There's nothing on par with the tactics displayed in A New Hope. It's just some hacking back and forth. So there you have it, the second ever lightsaber duel. If you were hoping for Cloud City, I can't promise it will be soon, but that will be next. But as for this fight, these are my thoughts. What are yours? Leave them in the comments below. But for now, that's all from me. Thanks for watching.